And so I looked up two theories on what causes the majority of stars in these colors in these two types of galaxies. And I found that Beck and I had very similar topics. So we actually found that zooniverse helps to figure out that there are very few percentage of spiral galaxies that are actually redder than would have been than you.
There's a little bit of sound.
Oh no! I'm sorry, what happened?
I think, keep going. I think we can hear okay.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So, what I basically did was I just looked at theories and discussed from a more basic level how color can represent age and what the implications of that were for the color of the galaxies, and then a different theory which discusses how elliptical galaxies may have been formed from the collision of spiral galaxies. And that's what I looked at.
Yes, and there was some overlap with what your teacher did. Can I describe what you did?
What I did was I went with the leading theory of why these galaxies are red and why they're blue, but then I learned that either galaxies can be red blue or blue red, and we don't understand why, but Xingverse helped figure that out because of the crowdsourcing of the galaxies.
And then, so one of our questions, so I'm going to start launching into the questions from our feedback list, but I'm going to jump a little bit down the list because, so Jennifer and Rebecca, following up on your research project, we wanted to understand in our instructions, where did we fail you in making sure that you worked with the Galaxy Zoo data set and made plots and sort of went from there? Like your videos, I've always enjoyed the videos you guys create because they're creative and they have music and interesting images and you get really into the science, but we were surprised that you didn't include any plots from the Google Sheet, like plots that you created.
We calculated, darn it. We did analyze the plots from the information that you gave us. We just didn't include them. I did use the add-on to do the activities. What do you think about including that? Because I thought that the tools were supposed to help you understand what you're supposed to do and get broader understanding. I didn't realize they're supposed to be the basis of the research.
Yeah. Yes. And then one of you used more of I think it was the globular cluster data set. It had like M33 and M3. And there we wanted to understand how you went into that rather than using the Galaxy Zoo data set.
Oh, I think I got confused between the spreadsheets I was looking at.
I think so, part of it is, yeah, the summer pilot where things were done, like, we weren't in person to provide instructions. But one thing that would be helpful for us is if you could take a moment and look through the instructions again and see if there was anything in there that was obviously unclear to you that led you astray, that we should make sure we revise for the future. Okay. That would be really helpful.
Okay.
But even with that, all the rest of these questions, you still will definitely be able to provide us feedback on. So the first of the question is just for the three of you, how much time did you spend approximately, if you can think of it, each week on doing this research project? What do you think is your estimated time of effort?
Creating the video actually took longest. It took about 5 about 5 hours every week up till the video, and then the video took about 10 hours since I don't use video software a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. That reflects in your video. It's cool. But I can see how that would take a lot of time. What about for you, Jacob?
I think probably around 3 to 4 hours a week, just getting the spreadsheets and all that set up, and then the actual presentation and all that together, probably around 3 to 4 hours a week.
And did you spend multiple weeks on making the video, or do you think it took about 3 to 4 hours to make the video in total?
I made the video, and I used the PowerPoint as baseline, so I think I spent 10 hours or so on a single day making the video, and then that was it.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. That helps us. We're trying to plan, as you know, we're trying to plan out how this could look for a whole, so students working in groups of 2 to 4 students in a group. We're just trying to get a sense for amount of time students might spend on each part. All right. What about, Jacob, you used PowerPoint to make your video. Would it have been helpful, or are there instructions we could have included that would have helped guide in the creativity for the video, or if we really wanted images or yeah, I guess any way for the videos to be more engaging, what do you think could have been useful for you to have in terms of instruction?
Maybe something along the lines of whether it should just be sort of a screen capture of going through how we researched, or whether it should be a screen capture of an actual presentation, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. We should just be much more specific on what we want.
Would it have been helpful to have a list of resources of how to create a video for anybody?
It would have been helpful, actually.
Okay.
Because Beck, who creates most of the videos, has used this program before. We knew what to use, but I could see why it would be more difficult if you don't know which program to use.
What did you guys use?
We use Camtasia.
Camtasia?
Yes.
All right. Is that a free?
No, that's not free.
But we could think about.
We should look at free ones.
Yeah. What about? Because the main goal is the research and the research experience, but there's also an aspect of science communication and making a presentation engaging. Would it be useful if we provided a folder of assets, like beautiful galaxy images, or in one of, I forget if it was Rebecca or Jennifer's, you included a few different simulations of galaxies emerging or simulations of how galaxies formed. Would it be useful to just provide a folder of interesting assets that students could access for this?
It could give some inspiration. I think that would be helpful.
I think as well it would be helpful, and even if it isn't helpful, it would just be fun to look through it.
Yeah.
Julie, any other questions under this sort of general making engaging videos piece?
Not from me. Yeah.
Then next question. So in the survey feedback forms we got, a couple students said they could use more instruction in how much depth was needed in the research question and analysis. And I was wondering, what was that something that you wondered about? And sort of, if it was, could you clarify what it means to you to what this depth question is about?
So you said depth?
Yeah, so it was the student asked for more instruction on how much depth was needed in the research question and analysis. There were a couple different people who said something along these lines. Or another way to ask the question is, were there enough instructions for you to know what you should do for the research project and how complicated a research question you should pursue, how far to go in the analysis? Yeah.
One thing that during the week 1 project activity that you gave us was that after I had completed the activities, the last question, step 5, was starting your research project. And I thought that the questions asked, what questions do you have about galaxies after answering this, was just a general question that you would just be asking, but may or may not be based solely on the data that we're looking at, which is why my question may have been not related to what it should have been. Because I didn't realize that in the end would be what the research topic was supposed to be about.
Yeah, we should definitely be way more explicit. Like, we should probably just include specific wording of using this same data set, building off of this question of are all ellipticals red, are all spirals blue, what is the next question you're interested in pursuing? That's going to be the basis for your research project. Yeah, that is it. It's funny how you sort of overlook the obvious stuff when you're putting this together. Yes. All right.
I mean, I think that it would be helpful if we knew kind of to what kind of audience we'd be what our video would be for. Like, if it's for someone who has a lot of experience with this data set, so wouldn't have to have an explanation for, say, the G-R index or something like that, versus someone who's never worked with galaxies and who just wants to see a full video.
Yes.
Because depending on how that works, the depth of the explanation for what the actual research was gets a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, so given that the audience are your peers in class, will be peers in class who are doing the same research project, I think it's a very good idea to include an explanation of that your audience are your peers in this class who are using the same data set, who know what the variables mean. But because everybody will pursue a different question, I think we could include wording in there that's like, both, you don't need to explain what the data in the actual data table is, but we still want people to give some of the basic definitions if they pursued an environment dependence, what their understanding of distance to galactic cluster means, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good point. We should be more clear on audience and how much. Maybe this goes to that question: how much depth of detail? It could also be a question for, as you make your video, you want to know how detailed to get.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about explaining what an HR diagram was.
Right. For example, which I really like that simulation of for the HR diagram separating out the stars like that. And when I saw that simulation, it's like the best explanation I've seen for how the HR diagram works. So then, sort of speaking about the data table itself, did any of you see that there's a column where you could click on a link and get more information about the individual galaxy?
Oh, I don't think I did.
Yeah. Did you see it, Jacob? Or
I saw it.
Did you happen to click on any of the links just to see what information is there?
I actually had to delete that entire column pretty quickly because I ran out of space. Because Google Sheets only allows 250,000 rows and columns or something like that. And I ran out of those within the first 6 hours or so.
Yeah.
And then I sacrificed the links to external information.
Right. So supposedly, according to their official documentation, you can have up to 2 million cells in a given Google Sheet. But I've had the same experience where after making a few tabs and, filtering the data and making copies of it, it seems to run out way before the 2 million cells is hit. So it's something we've been wanting to look at and check into, but it's really helpful to hear that you ran into that limit. And your response was just delete some of the columns I'm not using, right? The other part is that Rebecca and Jennifer, you guys didn't see that column. There's a ton of information in there, and it surprised us that none of the 6 used that, but we also realized we didn't point it out in any special way in our instructions, so no wonder nobody used it. So, yeah, okay, that's helpful.
I have to be right back. My professor,
Yes.
he hasn't been in all day, and but I'm here. Here.
Yes. Let's see. One of our questions was, so that first introductory activity was, are all ellipticals red or all spirals blue? And we'd actually, we'd anticipated that most of the groups might do, or at least a few of the groups, or a few of our pilot testers this summer, might look specifically at red ellipticals, at red spirals and blue ellipticals, and try to look at those in particular and see what might be going on in those special outlier groups. But instead, most people didn't. And so we were trying to understand, we were surprised by that. It's fine, but we were trying to understand why. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. Oh, Jacob, did you have to leave, or are you still there?
Very bad sound quality right now, though. I'm trying to amend it.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes closing video and just having sound helps with that.
Yeah, I switched Wi-Fi now, so it should be better.
Okay. Maybe I'll repeat the question. So the question was, in that introductory activity, you see that there's these outlier groups, these interesting red spirals and blue ellipticals. We had anticipated at least a few of the groups would pursue those subtypes in particular and do their research on those. And nobody really did that. And so we were trying to understand why, and not that it's a problem, but more it surprised us, and so we were trying to understand.
I thought it was a suggested project, but not a one that was supposed to be completed. I did find it interesting, though.
Yeah, and it's true. It wasn't a required to continue thinking about those subclasses in particular. But yeah, okay. Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
I thought that it was more of finding a general trend within all the data, I think, so I didn't really think about pursuing any sort of subgroup or anything like that.
Did you think that was was your impression that that's what we wanted, to look at general trends and not get into any subtype specifics?
Yeah.
Okay. I could see, yeah.
As much as possible.
Yeah, the way we set it up, I could see how that might come across. So maybe, yeah, Julie, that's something else we should think about, is including the instructions that people can go deeper on just these
Yeah.
substances, or
Maybe how we phrased it was leading people away from it.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I'm just writing some notes as well. And then the other, it's a somewhat related question, but I can imagine after you spent your first 5 hours pursuing your initial research question, you probably came to think about other aspects or other questions that were related but interesting or brought you a little bit deeper. And we're wondering, maybe, was it just purely lack of time to continue going deeper into the data set? Or was it just relief that you answered your first question, so let's write that up and do a video on it because this is a summer pilot test? I was wondering, yes, about that aspect of, I don't think anybody in the group sort of took it to the next level and said, okay, I answered my first foundation question, now I'm going to go for this second level of complexity.
I mean, I think it was a combination of lack of time and not knowing who the audience was, so I didn't know how far my research was supposed to go, and it was also constrained by the length of the video.
Right, that's very true. Yeah.
I think for me, the main constraint was the length of the video, because anytime I have anything timed, I'm at least 2 minutes over it. So I was trying to make sure that I got as close as 4 minutes as possible. And even with this rather simplistic explanation for my research question, I was barely below the 4-minute mark. So I figured that it was probably better just to keep my research question like this and not go into any sub-level. That would then take it way over.
In your analysis, are there additional things that you just didn't talk about in the video at all, just because of lack of time?
There's a few things that I left out as well, yeah. So there were, for example, some further questions that I got from the data sets that I didn't put in the video just because I had no time to put it in.
Right. And this is for Julie and the rest of our team to talk a bit about, but I have wondered if videos are the right way to go with this. We thought it would be one, like, kind of fun and allow for creativity, but part of me has wondered whether instead we should think about, I mean, in other classes, students make a website, and that way they can include all their plots and all the description they want, or is something we should probably think about a little bit more, especially because quite a few, like Jacob, just shared their Google Doc, or shared a PowerPoint, or shared a Google Doc and talked through it. And so, yeah, it's a question. Yeah.
Well, maybe you could have an option of creating a video or writing a paper. That's very different.
Oh,
Now. That's so extremely different.
It is.
I think maybe another option could also be having a video and then giving the option to embed it in a website with further information. So, for example, having the video and then putting it on a website that has additional information and all the actual research as part of it. And that way you can actually include all your information and all that, but you still have the video as part of it. It's, I guess, a jumping off point into the research of that particular person.
Yeah, it could be like the video is the abstract, and then the website gives all the further detail. We'll have to look into it again. Like, there's a limited amount of time we can take from the students and all the other work they're doing for the class for this, but there might be a simple way to do that where you're mean, you're sort of doing the work anyways as you make your plots and make the video. And so, yeah, there's something to think about there. It's also, you know how there's like introductory astronomy courses with 400 students? The 4-minute limit for the video is also for the instructor and the grading.
Yeah.
And also to keep it as fair as possible from one group to another. But these are good ideas. And Jacob, you mentioned something about sort of the interpretation of your results, and including that. And you know, I actually think the three of you, you all did quite a bit of interpreting your results in your videos. There are a few of the other videos that they're really about just stating whether or not they saw a correlation in whatever research question they were pursuing, but they didn't really provide any interpretation. And so we had a couple questions in our feedback here that were going to be about that, but I don't think it's as relevant to the three of you, actually. Maybe another way to ask those questions is, how did you know that you should include interpretation of your results in your video? Did anything in the instructions prompt you to do that, or what made you want to do that? Which was the right thing to do. It's just some students didn't.
I just remember from the previous video we made for the class, we included a lengthy section on interpretation. And I thought it's always good, just like when you write a paper, to discuss the error, to discuss your interpretations or various other theories that may support or disclaim what you've said, so that that uncertainty is still factored in.
Right, right.
In my case, I had some data sets or some separate filters for data sets that by themselves seemed a bit edgy, but with the interpretation I could get them to actually make a point. So I separated out the data into two sets, one below the mean distance and one above the mean distance. And if I just included that, those two histograms, that wouldn't really make much sense. But then with the interpretation, including some other stuff, it actually made some sense to include those histograms. So it was more about having the data make sense by itself didn't quite work, but having the data make sense through the interpretation of the data worked to explain it.
Right, right. Yeah, in many ways your research question like forced you to have to say, I think this is because X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Then there's some questions about the tools themselves. So one thing you brought up already is that you ran into this 2 million cell, or probably less, 250,000 maybe, row limit. And so that made you use the data differently because of that limitation. Any other limitations or problems you had with the tools that we should be sure to have on our radar and we could talk through a bit?
The tools didn't work in Firefox for me, so I used Google Chrome instead. Yeah, that's one thing. Everything worked. I just found it a little confusing trying to do the research on top of learning how to use the Google Docs at the same time. So that sometimes I would figure out how to use the Google Docs after I've tried to start the research, and then I'd mess up what I was doing.
Yes.
Just me.
Our hope, so in the course, the setup is the students will do a series of in-class activities where they're learning the tools, and then maybe a third or two-thirds of the way into the class, that's when the research project will start. But the comment in general is instructions how to use the tools we're going to think more about as well.
Did Jennifer and Rebecca, did you get a chance to watch the video of our initial discussion in early July? And was that not helpful at all?
It was helpful.
Okay.
I did watch that. I did watch it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
What about, did any of you have the trouble where if you use the filter tool but you hadn't renamed the tab, it would cause difficulty?
I never renamed any tabs.
Or a new sheet? Or a new sheet within your Google Sheet? Maybe not.
I mean,
Okay.
sometimes it took multiple tries to get the data to properly filter, but it seemed to me like that was just an error with loading, and that it just couldn't get through the data in a set the time, and then it just gave me a blank sheet. But it always seemed to work if I just redeleted the sheet and then redid the entire thing.
All right. Yeah. That came up a couple times. I think we should just have some, like, write the statement that we know this happens, so when it happens, just delete and try again. It is a timeout error, you're right. What about, so as you make a plot, so you made a plot of a histogram of mass for spirals and a histogram of mass for ellipticals. Was it totally fine to just compare them side by side? Yeah, was there anything about the making comparisons that was easy or hard, or suggestions you might have on those?
Making comparisons was easier when I copied and pasted a picture of histograms to a different document. So I could have them all up at once.
Mm-hmm. And did you just copy paste into another, like a Google Doc or like a Word document, or where did you move them to?
I copied and pasted them to a Word document.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, I downloaded all the histograms and all my plots and just look at them with, I think, Adobe Acrobat or something like that, because it made it easier to just have them side by side and be able to manipulate them using the desktop as a whole rather than have them integrated into the sheet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would have been fine to just use it in the sheets as well.
Yeah, I have a feeling a lot of students will do that and did that. Was it frustrating and annoying to do that, or was it fine?
No, it took 10 seconds or so for each plot. It was no trouble or anything like that.
And was the statistics tool a helpful one and easy to, I guess, user-friendly, easy to use, easy to interpret?
I mean, for me, it was really helpful because I managed to use it to first figure out that there was some data in my that I couldn't really use because I didn't know that the near cluster distance was logarithmic. So that helped because suddenly the minimum was -800 and the mean was around -20, and that explained a lot. But then the statistics was very easy to use, and I thought it worked very fast as well, so I thought that was a good tool.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Anything else about the tools themselves? Well, that in itself is actually a really good thing. We did a very different project, but a previous iteration with some custom built data analysis tools, and they gave us a lot of trouble. And so we made this choice to use Google Sheets and just build on top of those. And I think the lack of sort of real problems or issues is a good sign. What about, in general, if you had been given a data set and you could use any tool, data analysis tools you wanted, what would you have used?
Because I'm working with it right now, I don't know if this would be accessible, but I'd be using IDL because it plot the noise and you could analyze arrays much more easily.
Right, right. And that, yeah, so definitely for more advanced students, that's the type of thing we're thinking, or Python or some other. Yeah. What about for you, Jacob?
I probably would have just used functions written into Google Sheets and worked my way through with that and just made it work. Because, I mean, I don't have any real data fit tools that I can easily get access by myself, as of right now at least. And so I would have made it work somehow, but ZooTools was definitely very helpful with that.
Right, right. Have you used Google Sheets in your class work at school?
Yeah, so my school works with Google accounts, so I use Google Sheets and basically all of Google Docs for everything.
Right. Sort of banking on more and more students having some background because of what they do in high school.
Mhm.
Google Sheets. Yeah. All right. Let's see, Julie. Any other questions? Or yeah, anything else?
I haven't thought of anything based on their responses yet.
What about for you all? Any parting final suggestions, comments that you want to be sure we have in mind? What about if you were to redo this summer, would you have spent these, oh, maybe it was about 20 hours total or 25 hours total, again working on this? Was it useful, interesting, fun, anything? Or you can also say, not really. I don't think I would have done this knowing where I'd get to.
Yeah, I would have done it again. I would have picked a question with an actual answer that was not no answer, but yeah, I would have definitely done it again.
I'd do it again. I'd do it again with a better question that I asked. Because I wasn't happy with the question I asked.
Actually, so that is a question we wanted to ask. So, Jacob, you said your question came down to that didn't really have an answer. There was sort of like a null result. Is that a very frustrating? Was that very frustrating? Would that have the possibility of turning you off from wanting to do more research? Like, what was the sort of emotional result of that? And it's important for us to be thinking about it because a lot of questions will end up like yours.
I mean, I thought it was fine. I disliked the fact that my hypothesis was wrong, of course, but I would have just, if I had had a different research question, if I'd actually been working for more than this class and had more time, actually, I would have just picked a different question and tried again. Because, I mean, I was expecting that more likely than not I would get something that had no clear result. And in my case, actually, the result was pretty clear, but it was that there was no relation. But so I would have just picked a different topic that probably would have had an answer, in my opinion. I just kept trying until I found something with a relation.
Right. Hearing you say it like that makes me feel optimistic that this might motivate students to want to know more. But what I'm concerned about is students have that experience and then say, research is not a rewarding, not rewarding, or some kind of negative emotional response to it, which is not what we want. But
one thing that I did find slightly just I'd like to note is that even if this was supposed to be, yeah, please talk to Seth for me about the research project, is that when I think of research, I think of it as you going out finding the data or at least being led to a place where you could get the data from. Like if you want to look at planets, you'd be guided to look at the Kepler mission and. Oh, nothing. He's talking to someone else first. Okay, and downloading the information. I found it strange to have it as a research project when you're given the specific tools and specific data set to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, there's not the freedom to choose your own data, and you're even constrained from the beginning to like a general research area. Yeah, do you have any suggestions for what might make it feel like there's more freedom, even though we still will constrain the students to that data set and use that?
Maybe providing, and probably because I didn't look at the extra tab, more information on galaxies and stars so that you at least have something to build on before you start using the research, or at least you can start thinking about things outside the research.
I think that if it's clarified that the tabs actually have some information in it with the links, and then also just clarifying that you don't have to look for a trend that utilizes all 12,000 data points. I think that'll give it a lot more freedom, and it'll also make it seem like there's a lot more freedom, because at least for me it seemed a bit constricted because I didn't know about the specified, actually pretty cool information in the links that I was looking at a few minutes ago. And then also that I could also just pick about 100 outliers for something and look at those 100 outliers or so.
Right. That is all really helpful to hear. Very helpful. All right. So with that, any final? Well, obviously you can email Julie or me anytime with additional thoughts. If you haven't yet filled out doing the second time of the Nature of Science survey, Julie emailed it about it. Definitely do. That's helpful for us to see sort of a pre and post. And then otherwise, just a huge thank you. Your help is really, really, really appreciated with this. We have a lot we're going to update, and then we have a lot we know that is going okay that we can sort of build on. So, thank you.
Opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh.